Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Aman Luthra, and today I want to talk about something that frankly I was hesitant to make a video about. If you followed this channel for a while now, you'll know that I make a lot of videos about climate change because I think climate change is a major threat to our society which we aren't taking enough action on right now. And when I make climate change videos, my goal is always to offer solutions rather than just talk about the problem at hand. And the reason I was hesitant about making this video is because I'm not so sure what the solution is to this problem, if there is one at all. My past videos have been mostly about the science behind climate change, and I think science offers very clear solutions for the most part. And if you want to see some of these solutions, I will include videos in the top right corner as well as in the description. However, when the problem is political rather than scientific, the solution is a little bit harder to figure out. But I'm still going to make this video because I know this is a problem that needs to be addressed. We are going to talk about the problem with capitalism, at least in the United States. In case you don't know, capitalism is an economic system where the production and distribution of goods are entirely controlled by private owners, and there's little to no government involvement. Now, capitalism at its core is not necessarily a bad idea. The whole reason it exists is to avoid intervention from external parties like the government or people who are not involved in selling or buying a specific product. It also rewards people who are able to figure out ways of producing wealth, like by starting and owning a business, for example. Basically, the goal in a capitalistic society is to minimize the cost of goods and to maximize the profits that you can get from them. But the problem with capitalism, at least from an environmental perspective, is that it does not consider that the world has limited resources. The environment needs trees, clean water, animals, and so on, not just to support itself but also civilization. Unfortunately, that is a core concept that capitalism ignores. In a capitalistic society like the United States, people want to make as much money as possible in the short term, and of course that completely ignores long-term survival. While capitalism itself does not encourage greed, it allows greedy people to do whatever it takes to protect their profits, even if it means destroying the planet, spreading disinformation through marketing, or even being inhumane to the workers who make it possible for them to be wealthy. And that is just completely unethical, plain and simple. For example, one thing that the fossil fuel companies like to do to help maintain their profits is to hire people to cast doubt on the science behind climate change. You see these people in the news all the time. They will claim to be an expert to establish their authority, which very few people will actually take the time to check, and they will all spread different messages. Some of them will tell you that climate change is not happening. Some will tell you that it's happening but not because of humans. Some will tell you that there's not enough evidence to prove whether or not it is happening. For one, these people are wrong, plain and simple, and there is more than enough genuine evidence to say so. But more importantly, what this does is it reduces the demand for policies to enhance renewables, because people start believing them, and that ultimately allows fossil fuel companies to protect their profits and stay in business. And right now in our current capitalistic system, there are no rules or regulations to prevent this kind of behavior, which needs to change immediately. And there are also no barriers for how much or little these corporations can lobby in Congress or to other corporations. Fossil fuel companies lobby in order to prevent regulations that would help enhance renewables, and also to have members in Congress to cast doubt and denial on climate change. The meat and dairy industry will lobby to environmental and health organizations to hide information about how raising animals for food and products causes environmental damage, health problems, and it ignores animal welfare rights. And these corporations lobby millions and millions of dollars. So most of our lawmakers and corporate owners would rather keep that money for themselves, rather than push for policies geared towards reducing emissions and fighting climate change. And another thing that lobbyists can do is have policies which prevent polluters from paying for the environmental damage that they cause. And they can also keep subsidies away from the renewable industry. Since they usually don't have to pay for the damage they cause, the lower and middle class do through taxes, which to me is like putting the blame on someone for something that they never did. And finally, today's capitalistic system allows corporate owners to keep as much money as they want for themselves, and they can pay their workers as little as they want. And often that means that the workers will not be given the salary or the care they deserve, even though they are the ones who literally make it possible for corporate owners to become rich. So clearly capitalism today in the United States has its flaws, especially in regards to the environment and to the workers. But what is the solution to all this? Well, like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm not so sure what the solution is. As you know, when it comes to politics, there's really no single solution that everyone can agree on. However, I'm going to present my hypothetical solution, which is probably far-fetched in reality, but I also don't see many other ways around it. My solution is capitalism can exist, but it needs to consider long-term survival, both for the environment and for humanity. For one, instead of having the external costs of producing goods to be placed on citizens through taxes, they need to be placed on the producers. For example, if you paid $50 a month for electricity that came from coal, there's probably another $100 of environmental damage created which the power company does not pay for, and that ends up in all of our taxes. But if the companies were forced to pay that rather than us, it would force them to reconsider how to reduce their costs, especially since renewables have a much lower environmental cost. Now, of course, that's going to be really hard to pull off as long as fossil fuel companies are lobbying in Congress to prevent those kind of laws from ever being passed. So another thing that needs to be done is to have some sort of regulation that shuts the door between Congress and the lobbyists. I don't know exactly how that would happen since those currently in Congress who literally depend on those donations would easily vote against it, but I do know that it needs to happen. If fossil fuel companies and other industries that cause heavy environmental damage continue to send millions and millions of dollars into Congress, subsidies will never be shifted from the fossil fuel industry to the renewable industry, and that's going to allow coal, oil, and gas companies to emit more CO2, lobby more, and the recycle keeps repeating itself. The US Congress has become a place where a lot, not all, but a lot of people decide to serve because they want to get rich, not because they want to represent the people, which is completely inhumane. So that's my far-fetched solution. There has to be restrictions on lobbying for the sake of maintaining industrial profits, and the external costs of production need to be placed on the corporations who cause the damage rather than the citizens. And I get it, pulling it off would be amazing but also insanely hard to do. But at the same time, I don't know if there's a better solution, because the United States will forever be a capitalist nation. I am certainly not against capitalism itself. I definitely think that you should be rewarded for the efforts and the strategies that you use for generating wealth. However, I am against capitalism having no restrictions or penalties on the environmental damage that anyone can cause, and having no restrictions or penalties on how workers are treated. In the current world of capitalism, as long as you are profiting, you can literally get away with being as selfish as you want. And that has to change, because if it does not, then unfortunately our environment is doomed. What if we were rewarded for protecting the environment rather than destroying it? What if we were rewarded for compensating our workers fairly, since they are the ones keeping our society functioning? That way we could live in a capitalist society that considers long-term survival and the well-being of the working class. I gave you my solution that I know is far-fetched, but I also want to hear from you. Start a discussion in the comments below if you think there's a better idea. I would love to hear your perspective here. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe down below. I make videos on climate change very regularly on this channel, and I know you don't want to miss out on them. Because when the last tree has died, and the last river has been poisoned, and the last fish has been eaten, we will realize that we cannot eat money. Alright, bye everybody.